everyone. Happy Sunday.
Hey.
Hello. Hello. Thank you all for being here. You want to go around and introduce yourselves, friends?
I'm Amber from Into the Weeds podcast.
Nancy Simpson, the Toll podcast.
I'm Ashley Baby.
Laura, also Into the Weeds podcast.
Thank you all so much for jumping in. So I saw a picture the other day on TMZ, and I had a moment where I was like, oh shit, is TMZ covering the Gypstein files? My brain actually read this as Gypstein, not Epstein, but it was an Epstein files photo. Let's share that real quick. So yeah, we have a wig catalog. We've got the pink play. We've got a pink collar, fuzzy handcuffs, and I just read it for a minute as Gypstein's X-rated play toy. So it's like we haven't seen that. But that got me to thinking though, and it's something that I've said before, is I feel like Gypsy, from everything we see, especially in this latest FOIA, she would have loved to have been a Ghislaine Maxwell. It seems like that's what she was actually trying to build.
Oh, yeah, that was her dream job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. She would have loved some shit like that.
Yeah, Nick didn't have the funds or the, brains to be in Epstein, thank goodness.
Oh.
But like if Gypsy could have gotten a hold of someone like that, I feel like she would have been a Ghislaine right away, because that's what she was saying in her videos, like offering up the 13-year-old and stuff.
Yeah. Totally in line with that.
Yeah, definitely. The collars, all of it. That looks like her whole little shindig right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people find it shocking that as a woman that Ghislaine was willing to bring these other girls into what she knew was going to be abuse. And that's also what actually turned some people against Gypsy in these latest FOIA, is seeing her sit up there with her 22-year-old butt in her own mouth, words coming right out of her face hole. When she's 13, I'll explain.
Yeah.
That was a turning tide for a lot of people.
A lot.
Mm-hmm. And that was my main selling point at CrimeCon. That was what I put on the front of that flyer, because I felt like it was really important for people to understand that came out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people didn't quite understand why you put that so front and center. But now that these videos have come out, I think more people do understand why you were trying so hard to drive that home to people, that she said that.
Yes.
Because it's turned people.
Yeah, reading the emails is completely different than seeing these videos. It just is.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yes. Seeing the description and seeing the video is completely different. Like it's...
Well...
And we have not seen Nick's supposed video or his command to make her do this either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's important to point out, he was so many states away. Like, she needed him for a job. That's why she kept doing this, not because he was making her.
Yeah. And, she calls it a script, but those are not scripts she's reading. She's reading questions and answering them freely. And with her whole chest, she is saying those things. Like,
well, that's the thing. That's the thing that impressed me so much. Not like...
I know what you mean.
So the fact that as she's speaking, we were always told, she was afraid, he was dangerous, he was a monster. And then to see how excited and joyful she was saying some of these things, it's like, what the heck?
Definitely didn't look like she was scared. To me, in any of them, she doesn't look like she's scared and intimidated and he's making me.
Mm-hmm.
There's that Valentine's Day one that I just did a TikTok on, and it's just sorry, TT. But she's just, you sent me chocolate and I love it, and it's just, there's nothing scared or timid or it's
and when I'm sorry, Nancy, I thought yours.
Yep, I'm good.
When she was actually, putting on a crying face and everything, in some of the videos, it seemed so obvious that she was doing an act, because it's the exact same like posture and facial ways as whenever she would do her Christian Grey Anastasia Steele act. Like she's
Yeah.
copying, she is copying a script. It's just not from Nick.
Right. And
Yeah,
some of her video, you know, the video she made to Ryan where she's like she made that big long video on TikTok where she's apologizing. That is what those videos where she's crying in
Yes.
the mirror reminds me of. The
Need to
videos
practice
were
that shit.
Yep.
goodness.
And
like,
it's so different seeing it yourself because we can tell because we've watched so much of her videos in different contexts. It's very obvious to us, but the police officers, I don't think are allowed to try and interpret things like that. So these transcripts and descriptions of the videos would say stuff like Gypsy appears in distress, Gypsy is crying, Gypsy,
Yeah.
appears upset and everything. And so just reading the transcripts, there's a lot of different interpretations that your mind can assign to that description. Well, then we see it. It's like, oh.
There's one video where I feel that it was sincere and the tears were real, and that's when she was talking about her dad and feeling abandoned.
Yeah.
And didn't want that to happen. I did feel like out of all the videos we've watched,
Yeah.
that was actually genuine, and it just felt completely different from the others that she was doing for Nick.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Well,
one may have
that's
been a little real.
the one video, I can't remember if it was I think it was a Life After Lockup clip where she's crying and she's like, I don't want my daughter to hate me. And people have asked me, how are you going to explain to her where her grandma is? And I felt like she is actually sincerely upset by that because in her mind, like, it's just not possible for people to hate her. She is a victim. We're just haters, and everyone who hates her is wrong. So the thought of her daughter going to hate, like, she just can't accept that. That upsets her. But it's like, girl, you chose to make another human who is going to have to deal with the fact that her mom is a murderer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know?
And she says something in that clip too where she was like, I just want her to forgive me. Talking about her kid. And it's like, girl, how's she going to forgive you for you murdering her mom? That's a lot of weight to put on a kid, lady.
Mhm.
And then growing up, realizing everything was a lie and how many
Yeah.
mom is like, this is really rough.
Having a weird book dedicated to you like that.
Oh my God.
You know?
I feel sorry for her once she gets to a certain age and figures out everything that's happened, and she will.
You can tell Kian is totally uncomfortable with the thought of their child reading that book at any age. Every time
As he
anyone
should.
asks him about it, he ain't got no backbone to say anything about it to Gypsy, obviously, but like it's very obvious. He's just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, dude, it was. I still have probably 3 chapters of that book. I just cannot. I'm just like, ugh, because the book is so gross.
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah.
It's hard, and I'm a grown ass woman. You know.
Yeah. And there's a
Where's a
there's
call?
a part of that book that I
I got
just
it downstairs.
that I just noticed the other day. I've been meaning to do a standalone video on, but Gypsy talks about how, she didn't understand that she should have asked for a lawyer as soon as she was arrested. And maybe if she'd watched true crime instead of Disney or detective shows, she would have known that. But she didn't know until it was way too late, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we all see you going, sir, I need a lawyer.
Yeah.
I need a
Yeah.
lawyer.
She had confidence in herself. She thought she was going to be able to talk her way out of it.
No, the
And-
fact that she asked for a lawyer and she needed a lawyer
Mhm.
totally seals the deal that she knew exactly what was going on.
Yep.
She knows how things work. Like it blows me away that she got the plea deal based on this whole idea that she was so abused and excluded that she just didn't understand anything, when the evidence is all right there that she understood whatever the fuck she wanted to understand, and she chose murder as the way out.
You know, I bet Dan Patterson didn't even watch most of these videos.
I almost made a video about this earlier because somebody had commented something about the plea deal and stuff. And I'm so massively confused. I'm just so confused how Dan Patterson was even allowed to still take part in Nick's trial after
Mhm.
being in the documentary.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't get it. And then looking back at the trial, Dan Patterson, every time Nick's attorney tried to bring up something to do with the medical, he objects. He doesn't, he's trying his best not to have her answer those questions,
Mm.
and I don't know, it's just like, did he know that the medical stuff was a lie? Like, did he know that?
Makes you
don't know.
wonder.
Sure he got cut a check. And who knows if like Springfield got cut a check because Lifetime or whoever made HBO was coming in. I mean, so weird.
What do
Yeah.
y'all think is the reason why Mike Stanfield's not her manager anymore? I just assumed she ran out of money to pay his fee.
Maybe.
Spending on wigs.
That's what
That
I was
seems reasonable.
thinking, that she didn't want to actually pay him the fee.
Would be really odd if they had a falling out, or if he just decided, man, these videos are not worth my reputation. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
kind of slide underneath the radar for a little bit.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if she kept him around to like scan her questions and things, making sure she isn't going to be answering things that incriminate her or something,
Probably.
It really makes you wonder.
It does. It does. Who has the criminal defense attorney become their freaking manager?
That
So-
is odd.
Especially what are they called?
Public defender.
Yeah, public defender.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all just weird. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You guys ready to talk some Epstein and Maxwell? It's wild. I was reading this stuff and I'm like, man, this is Gypsy's dream. She would have loved Ghislaine's life.
Mm-hmm.
I was going back trying to figure out when Epstein and Ghislaine first met. And
Uh-huh.
it seems like they met in 91 or 90 before her dad died. And for
Okay.
anyone who doesn't know, Ghislaine's dad was basically like a Rupert Murdoch. And he is a really, like, his life, when you're trying to look up the facts, it's one of those stranger than fiction things. It's like, am I reading a fiction? Because this is just all wild. So one of the first big things I noticed where I think Ghislaine was trying to help recreate Epstein as her dad was the birthday book. You know, the birthday book is just got all the crazy stuff in it. It just seemed like a strange thing to do almost.
Yeah.
I don't know about the birthday book. What are you talking about, a birthday book?
Epstein's birthday book that came
Yes.
out in the files. It's got notes and pictures and drawings. One of the most famous ones that the authenticity has been disputed was where Trump drew a lady and signed his name as the Bush.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know
I didn't
that.
know that. Oh
And
my
he's the only
God.
person involved in the book that denies the legitimacy of their inclusion in the book. So
Yeah, it's a bunch of notes and stuff and birthday cards from people too.
Okay.
Yeah, there's sections. It's like children and friends of children, like, and they're really, really weird drawings in there and implications of children being involved. Like
wow.
it's yeah, like there's a picture of Epstein and a bunch of children around him holding balloons and stuff, and like
Okay.
some really creepy stuff. Well, what I found out is I found an article from right after Robert Maxwell died where Vanity Fair interviewed his wife, Ghislaine's mom,
Mhm.
and they talk about how she made Robert Maxwell, a birthday book like that. His wife did, and it has a specific name that's a Jewish tradition,
Mhm.
which is probably why most of us don't know about it.
Mhm.
So let me share this article. I think you'll find it interesting.
Well, for people who don't know, I mean, he was from everything we can understand, he was most likely a spy
Like
for
Epstein.
Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And well, some of this you'll find out in this article, but he was a young Jewish man who all of his family were killed during the World War. And he
didn't realize
chopped
that.
off his locks and was able to escape, pretending not to be Jewish for a while, but then embraced his heritage later on in life once he was rich and able to do it without any fear.
Yeah.
But yeah, like very stranger than fiction stuff. It's wild. So the article here is from Vanity Fair. This is from March 1992, and it's called "The Sinking of Captain Bob." Did the same furies that drove Holocaust refugee Robert Maxwell to build high-stakes media empire play a role in his demise? I am utterly confused, said Elizabeth Maynard Maxwell, the elegant French-born widow of Robert Maxwell. The worst part for me, the most difficult part, is when I read this deluge about my husband, I think I'm reading about a man I never knew. I'm trying to adjust a pattern of behavior that is not at all convergent with the man I knew. It doesn't ring true for all the things Bob represented in my life. Says that she is sitting on a chintz-covered love seat, talking about how the whole of British society seemed to be gloating over the fall of the Maxwell house, because right before he was found dead, reports came out that he had spent the retirement pensions of all of his employees. He owned, the Daily Mirror newspaper? He owned that. That was his.
That's
He
messed up.
owned Pergamon Press, which actually started scientific journal printing as we know it.
Really?
So, yeah, any of y'all have y'all known anyone who went to school and was trying to publish a research paper who complained about how much it cost to publish in these journals, that then you have to buy the journals that are expensive to get peer reviewed?
Yeah.
You've heard of this? Okay.
Yeah.
That's because of Robert Maxwell.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, he was in Germany after the war, after the fall of, the Nazis and everything. And there were all these German scientists who had a peer review system there. But due to the sanctions after the war, they were no longer allowed to sell their work. They're published. They had this intellectual knowledge, all this stuff. And so Robert cut a deal with them that he would take it to England and publish it there and give them a cut. He started Pergamon Press. I bought one of his journals on eBay that was published in 1968. And colleges around the world, in Israel and America, like all these places around the world, bought his journals, and scientists had to pay to publish in there, and then the places had to pay to buy the work. So he created a money funnel for himself that still exists. That is still the copied way of scientific journal publishing.
The model.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he created that. And people wonder a lot of times why Epstein was so invested in donating to science and scientists and bringing scientists to his island and stuff like that. That seems to me a copy of how Robert Maxwell operated, by using science, like an almost ignored thing, to make himself seem way more legit and intellectual than he was, while creating a money funnel for himself.
Interesting.
Smart too.
Yeah. So it says here, she met frequently with her embattled sons, Ian and Kevin, both of whom were widely suspected of having aided their father in his illegal depredations. She delivered pep talks to the family, her 7 surviving children and their spouses, reassuring them that despite the scandalous collapse of the Maxwell empire, life with their father had not been a total sham. She spoke daily to her youngest daughter, Ghislaine, who lives in New York, and who was already discreetly inquiring of friends whether they would be willing to help provide surety for bail in the event her brothers were arrested. Elaine is the baby of the family, the one who was closest to her father, her mother told me. The whole of Ghislaine's world has collapsed, and it will be very difficult for her to continue. And that's another area where I feel like, Gypsy would totally love to be Ghislaine, because Ghislaine had this father that she idolized and made into a god with his really, really sick ways. Like Ghislaine, from what I understand, helped facilitate getting young women to her dad back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, she became her dad basically after he passed. She took over the reins.
And I think she used Epstein as like the male figurehead.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. I had read the comments a little bit, but did it mention anything about McGraw-Hill, the textbook company?
McGraw-Hill? I
No,
don't
not
know.
yet. I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
he owned that. Or he
I'm
owned
pretty
it.
sure, yeah, he owns or owned McGraw-Hill, the textbook company. That's what made all of my textbooks in high school.
Oh.
Robert Maxwell does? Or Epstein?
From what I understand, Robert Maxwell owns
Oh,
McGraw-Hill.
interesting.
From
Yeah,
what I understand.
he owned a crap ton of publishing, and he also another thing he did similar to Epstein is he would kind of play both sides of politics. And like he would publish, he had two newspapers, and one published a very left leaning perspective and another a very right leaning perspective. It seemed like deep down, much like it seems like Epstein was, he didn't really give a shit. He just cared about keeping his money flowing and keeping both sides happy enough to not turn their eyes towards him and try and investigate his fortune. Take it away.
Yeah,
Okay,
it really seems there's a lot of people that just kind of go where the money is and whatever, best represents their interests at the time.
Yeah, because whenever you read Epstein's emails, there are some programmers who took the email files that Congress released or the House or whatever it was, and they created a site called Jmail. It's Jeffrey Epstein's emails, but it looks like Gmail, and so it's easy to search and read. And I read a lot of his emails, and it's funny because he'll be emailing with like this one lady, I think it was Kathy Rumler. She was really high up in the Obama administration. And like it was clear that they were friends, and she believed that he was 100% with her on everything. He was emailing Steve Bannon at the same time with the same close relationship and helping Steve Bannon with things. And Steve was about to do a documentary on his life. So he was always playing both sides. When you read his emails, it doesn't seem like he really gives a shit one way or another politically, but he implied to people from either way that secretly he definitely was with them and he's going to donate to help their cause and blah, blah, blah. And you can see Robert Maxwell doing the same.
Yeah. It's funny when you hear about Robert Maxwell, you never hear about his wife and you never hear about his sons.
That's why I was really interested in this old article because like it's directly from his wife telling about all this stuff.
I find it very interesting.
But I feel like it's showing that these people, they play both sides, and at the end of the day, they don't really care.
Yeah.
I feel like that further drives home the point of we shouldn't be fighting left versus right. It's up versus down. They're just trying to divide us.
Facts. I believe the same thing, that left, right, red, blue. Man, that shit is to divide us. It is to create a division between us. It is to make it seem like that we don't all have the same shit, same problems. It is bullshit. They are pitting us against each other.
Hell yeah, I like having friends of all persuasions.
Me too.
Yeah, I do.
So it says, our interview was arranged by a mutual acquaintance, Samuel Pisar, a well-known international lawyer and survivor of Auschwitz, who in 1988 had been invited, along with Eily Wiesel and Simone Weil, to address a conference on the Holocaust organized by Betty at Oxford. Since Maxwell's sons were not Jewish, he was Jewish, but his wife was French. So the way that works, I guess, his sons were not.
It comes from the mother's line.
Gotcha. It was Pisar who had been asked by the Israelis and Betty to say a Kaddish at Maxwell's extraordinary quasi-state funeral in Jerusalem, where sorry guys, I need a drink. Sorry about that. 5 days after his death at sea last November, the tycoon was buried according to Orthodox custom of Israel, wrapped in a simple white shroud and without a coffin. Now, from what I understand, he was buried on the Mount of Olives, and like it was basically almost a state funeral.
Oh.
Yeah. It had been agreed that our meeting should be kept secret, so I had rented a sitting room in the Dorchester Hotel across from Hyde Park in central London without revealing to the manager the identity of my guest. She arrived dressed in couture widow's weeds, trim, stylish woman who hardly showed her 70 years. You're looking well, I said after she refreshed her makeup. Actually, she responded with a Gallic shrug. I feel quite tired. I'm normally a good sleeper, but recently I've had to live by night and sleep by day to avoid the reptiles. There was no mistaking her reference to the slithering frenzy of British press. especially its venomous tabloids, one of which, the Daily Mirror, had been owned by her husband. Reporters were having a field day with the revelations that Maxwell, an avowed socialist, had actually plundered and spent the Mirror's pension fund. That's why I say about like they'll say whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was constantly talking about communal socialist values. In the meantime, he was just literally taking all the money from
Wherever it would.
Yeah.
wherever. Yeah. And then his pension was supposed to be especially good because he was a socialist and he actually spent all the money. So they never got it
It's crazy.
before he died.
Interesting.
Says plundered the Mirror's pension fund, pillaged the treasuries of two of his public companies, shifted vast sums in and out of secret family trust in Liechtenstein, illegally propped up the share price of Maxwell Communication Corporation, racked up debts of more than $5 million, and perhaps,
Billion.
Oh, billion. Thank you for the correction. I misread that. And that's billion in 1980 or 1992 money.
Yeah. How do you even
Perhaps
know
most
that much
unforgivable of all, ensnared Ian and Kevin, that's his sons, in his malfeasance and left them exposed to criminal prosecution. A little more than a month had passed since Maxwell tumbled off his yacht and died under mysterious circumstances, and Betty Maxwell was numb from the savage public battering. People were calling her husband rogue, crook, bully, thief, megalomaniac, and gangster. They told lurid tales of his sex orgy with... Is it even appropriate to say that word anymore? Small people, little people, Filipino hookers. Former employees who had supped at his table described how the 310-pound media mogul gorged on soup spoonful after soup spoonful of caviar. They painted a portrait of an erratic and cruel tyrant, one who used Turkish towels for toilet paper.
What?
Yeah. Members of the British establishment, shamed and chagrined that they had lent him respectability along with money, behaved as though they had hardly known the man. That sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
Journalists wrote that he was a spy for the KGB or Mossad or Czech intelligence or all three. Others charged that Maxwell's emergence late in life as a born-again Jew was nothing but a charade to further his business interest in Israel and New York City. This had gone on for weeks, and depending on which newspapers Betty Maxwell picked up or whom her sons talked to, there was yet another theory about her husband had met his end. One claimed Maxwell died of a heart attack while having sex with a mistress on a 6-foot-wide bed. Another had him being assassinated at high seas by frogmen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm again
guys
wondering if
water.
that's a slur against the French.
No, it's people who come out of the water.
Okay, good. It's 1992. They said a lot of things that YouTube's not cool with us saying these days.
Yeah.
They had a few words already for sure.
Yeah. A fourth argued that he had accidentally fallen off the slippery deck of his boat in the early morning hours and drowned, as his crew and family believed. A fifth, which appeared in The Guardian, was the wildest of them all. The normally sober newspaper, freed at last from the threat of the libel writs that Maxwell had used throughout his life to silence critics, speculated that the body identified by Elizabeth Maxwell was not that of her husband at all, but a corpulent substitute, and that Maxwell had done a world-class bunk. That's exactly what we all think. Well, I say we all loosely, but most people in general think about Epstein.
Yeah.
Where, for instance, was the man who, in Betty Maxwell's words, cried his eyes out at the bedside of their eldest son, Michael, who was critically injured from a car accident when he was 15 and lay in a coma for 6 years before he died? Where was the man who had revolutionized scientific publishing with Pergamon Press? Where was the man who performed all those acts of unsung generosity? Maxwell had helped children fly from the Chernobyl area to Israel where they could receive proper medical treatment. And where was the man who just last March, on the eve of his triumphant acquisition of the New York Daily News, had thrown a lavish 70th birthday party for his wife in this very hotel? Attended by bankers, tycoons, lords, peers, ambassadors, and celebrities, the cream of British society, who were now denouncing him as a fraud. No wonder Betty Maxwell was confused. She had lovingly preserved more than 40 scrapbooks, bound each year in hand-tooled leather, of every article and photograph of her husband that have ever been published since her marriage 46 years ago. The
Wow.
clippings weighed 60 pounds.
Wow.
That's the picture of the magazine at that time. It says, almost 30 years ago, the Sunday Times of London had made the first serious attempt to unravel the mystery of Robert Maxwell, a man born in abject poverty in the Carpathian Mountains of Czechoslovakia, and originally named Jan Ludwig Hock. If I mispronounced that, anyone in the chat, I apologize. A subsequent Sunday Times expose of Maxwell was conducted amid what became a typical Maxwell counter-barrage: 5 libel actions, a demand by him to the publisher that the editor be fired, and the reporting of the editor for punishment to the House of Commons Committee of Privileges for the printing that Maxwell had fiddled with the figures when he was chairman of the committee that ran the members' restaurant. Shortly after the newspaper began its reporting in the early 60s, Maxwell became a Labour member of Parliament, but his chameleon-like penchant for changing names, his own as well as those of his proliferating companies, was barely known. Nor were very many people aware of Maxwell's obsession with appearance and titles. So yeah, there's more, and it gets a little more lurid, but isn't it wild just how almost exactly his story coincides with Epstein's?
Yeah, a true model for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you were going through that, it made me think, okay, well, now who's the next one? Who's running it now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right on.
that's the $1 million or billions of dollars question. Says the British were at a loss to what to make of this caddish foreign upstart. Nicholas Tomlin of the Sunday Times compared him to Lord Beaverbrook, the legendary Canadian publisher. Both came to Britain and conquered the most jealously guarded anti-foreigner gentleman's citadel of our national life. Both suffered calumnies from disgruntled natives and swept aside by the process, and caused controversy as to just how wicked they were, which will last forever. Years later, following Maxwell's death and the startling revelations about his complex, secretive life, there were those who saw a more apt comparison. They talk for a while about a book that I don't know about. I'm going to skip that paragraph. His wife admitted that he was an enigma. He inflated himself for sometimes childish reasons. She said, I think that came from his past. And then she told me of a remarkable incident from Maxwell's impoverished childhood in Czechoslovakia, where his mother had dreamed that her adored Lajby, an only son, would become a respected rabbi. One day, without any discussion with his father, he cut off his pays, the corkscrew sidelocks that devout yeshiva students wear. In the rigidly patriarchal setting of the Jewish shtetl, and I apologize to anyone in the chat if I'm sure I'm massively mangling these words. I don't know them. Mm-hmm. This was an Oedipal rebellion of staggering proportions, an angry statement by the young Maxwell that he was determined to live life by his own rules. I knew he had an enormous intelligence, Betty Maxwell told me, but he must have been even more clever if he fooled so many people for so long. If some of the things that appeared to have happened in the last months of his life actually happened, they can only have been the acts of a desperate man. At the moment, people are terribly angry with Bob, and with characteristic anger, they're just dishing the whole man. Nothing gives me greater solace than to know that he is buried in Israel. If he had been buried here in Britain, God knows what would have happened to his grave. These British, they might have come in the night and ripped open his tomb or defaced his tombstone. These British.
Coming.
Yeah.
She says that after they've been living in the very bosom of the cream of British society and all the privileges available.
Right. And
her husband's the thief, and she's like, these British.
Yeah.
I wonder, so he said that he was also a Christian Jew or a Messianic Jew?
No, he turned back Orthodox, I believe.
Oh, he turned back Orthodox? Okay.
I think so.
Because I was wondering, how is he buried there if that's the case?
Yeah, I believe he turned back Orthodox. And something I'm going to show y'all after I finish this article. They had him and his wife bought this really old aristocratic British home. I think it was called Heddleton House, and it had tons of stained glass. And he had a stained glass window made and put in there of himself as Samson at the gates of Gaza.
Oh, good gravy.
Yeah, right.
Dude,
Oh,
come on. People are so wild with the way they see themselves or think of themselves. Like,
Mhm. That
And it-
reminded me of Jeffrey Epstein, all the weird art that he had,
Mhm.
different meaningful stuff. And then weirdly took me back to Gypstein because we're finding all these paintings that she did of Demona, of Nick as two personalities, of
Yeah.
Dan, the lion protector. It's like there's a certain type of person, and whether they have a lot of money or no money, they behave the same.
yeah.
Oh, Mandy said he was born on the same date Dee Dee died.
Who was?
Uh,
Oh, Robert Maxwell?
Robert Maxwell.
Oh, wow. Let me look it up real quick.
Interesting.
June 10th, 1923 is when he was born. How weird.
Weird.
Wow. Thank you, Mandy, for that little tidbit.
Yeah.
Was that Mandy JUK?
Yeah.
She's always got the best info. Thank you.
Yes, she does. The
Okay.
Illuminati confirmed.
Right?
I mean, I don't. Whatever the closest thing to what we imagine the Illuminati to be is what these kind of people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Even if it's not the Illuminati exactly, these are the elites that are
Right.
clearly running stuff on both sides of the aisle in all kinds of different countries. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of like Davos and stuff like that, where all the rich people get together and make decisions. And
Well, what irritates me is like, I care about the environment, and I don't pretend to understand everything, but I do have a concern about climate change. And every time they have a climate change summit in Davos, all these people fly in on their private jets,
yeah,
which is one of the big things that people who are worried about climate change are trying to get people to stop.
It's all for show.
Yeah.
Prince Harry and his Travelist.
Yeah, that is when I remember the British press really starting to turn against them, when him and Meghan did this very like looking down your nose, like we all need to worry about the environment and collectively try to lower our carbon footprint. And then they took a big ass Russian private jet to a party somewhere, and newspapers started writing it, and they were like, you have to understand that we have to do that for security. Like, oh, rules for us and not
Yeah.
for you. All right, we see what you were saying now.
Mhm.
Okay, it says here, whether she was conscious of it or not, Betty Maxwell seemed to be angry too, for her husband had left her and her children in ruins and apparent penury. In its scope and drama, the saga of the Maxwell's fall was the stuff of Greek tragedy. For the past decade, Betty had been celebrated as the brilliant wife of one of the world's most richest and powerful men. She had been awarded a doctorate by Oxford University in 1981 at the age of 60, and though a French Huguenot, she was respected by Jewish scholars in Israel, the United States, and Europe for her research on the Holocaust. She was attended by a staff of 8 at Headington Hill Hall, the family's baronial 29-room mansion, which Maxwell leased for 99 years from the Oxford City Council and renovated at a cost of $1 million. She had the use of her own chauffeured Bentley. She traveled the world in her husband's Gulfstream 4 and a sleek 180-foot yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after their strikingly beautiful daughter. But now, said his widow, I'm in great financial difficulty. They've stopped my pension from Mirror Group newspapers. The only person who has actually lost her pension is me. All the others have continued to be paid. My husband's will is impounded. I haven't salted away anything because I never for a minute believed that he'd leave me destitute. They say that I have 500,000 pounds. Those are lies. I haven't anything. It wasn't my way of spiriting things away. Anyway, I didn't have access to the funds. I was never involved in Bob's business, she continued. I know absolutely nothing about Liechtenstein. I've never been in Liechtenstein. All I know is that the greatest disappointment for the press is there's going to be no money anywhere. And that is true also for my children. My daughter Ghislaine has no money, no trust, no funds anywhere. The assets of my sons have been frozen. Poor Kevin, he's got to sell his house. Ian, same thing. Neither of them had any money. Their father never gave them any money. I don't believe any of that for a second. Do y'all?
Yeah, no
No.
way. No way he racked up billions in debt and you don't have a dime.
Right.
No.
Yeah, and Ghislaine's lifestyle never stopped.
Nope.
I don't know how or why, but I believe that he moved money to Epstein in some way
Mm-hmm.
before he died because like I said, it's hard to nail down exactly when, but most reports show that Ghislaine and Jeffrey met in 90 or 91 before her dad died.
Yeah. So he moved it to somebody where they couldn't look.
Did
They have a
Epstein
reason
take
to
her
look.
daddy out?
I wonder about that, honestly.
Hmm.
I really
Would
do.
he not have been
Like
really
that.
old though when he passed?
Do what?
He would have been pretty old though when he passed though.
Yeah, he was old. And he was
he's-
very overweight, like had heart problems. Like,
But he fell
Yeah.
off his boat and they couldn't find him for a while, if I remember correctly.
yeah, they found him floating naked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
It says death. So it's a big deal. It was a big deal for them to get a determination of how he died because death by natural causes such as a heart attack would not be covered by his 35.4 million accidental death insurance policy.
Wow.
I used to sell accidental death and dismemberment coverage.
And so, what was his
So-
official cause of death?
Do what?
Running.
Official cause of death?
Drowning, I believe. Let me Google to make sure because I've read so much about it. It's one of those things kind of like the Gypstein files.
Yeah.
I've read so
Yeah,
many
she's
theories, I
terrible.
can't remember what was official.
Same. And I swear I think, I hitting 40 and my brain is sometimes I have the worst like brain fog. I will be mid sentence and just forget stuff. So
Oh, girl, that gets
not
better.
yeah, like not only is the stuff meshing together, but I just have these blips where I'm like, damn, what was I saying?
Yeah.
Fox and Faye said Meghan Markle did it. She like shots.
That's funny.
Oh my
Goodness.
Inquest later listed his cause of death as heart attack and accidental drowning.
Huh.
So if they were trying to, I wonder if, I don't think they would have got the insurance policy because it says heart attack wouldn't be covered. I don't know. But then heart attack, accidental drowning, like heart attack doesn't always kill you. So if you had a heart attack and fell over, maybe they did because I don't know.
That's wild.
It's funny. This is probably gonna be left field. It's all right.
Oh,
So
good.
he was born in the Carpathian Mountains, right? So
Yes.
that book Left Behind,
Mhm.
that movie series
Yeah.
and book
I
series.
remember hearing about it. Yeah.
They said that the Antichrist would come from the Carpathian Mountains.
I remember everybody getting all freaked out by that book.
I looked up to see where
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein was born. He was born in New York. So
That's funny. Someone said, how old was Epstein when Maxwell died? Just a second. Let me Google that. How old was Epstein in 1992? In 1992, he was 39.
oh yeah, totally old enough to be doing stuff
Mhm.
and
Yep.
running stuff.
Let's see. Like Jeffrey, a lot of people said they just couldn't see Bob Maxwell committing suicide, including his wife.
Yeah.
But of course, they didn't know how deep in debt and how much thieving he'd done. Let's see.
But as you said, Ghislaine never changed the way she lived. there was
Never.
no sign of poverty.
Yeah. Now here they talk about the sons, which I remember one of y'all were saying you hardly ever hear about. It says, late on Tuesday morning, November 5th, Gus Rankin, the captain of the Lady Ghislaine, telephoned Kevin Maxwell from harbor Los Cristianos in Tenerife to inform him that his father was missing at sea. At 32, Kevin was already his father's anointed successor. It was said of Kevin that although he resembled Betty physically, he had inherited Bob's cold, calculating personality. Kevin raced across the hall on the 9th floor of the Maxwell House, which is located off London's Holborn Circus, and burst into the office of his brother Ian, his senior by 3 years. Like Kevin, Ian was thin and good-looking, but known more for his easygoing charm than for his business acumen. Together, they put in a call to their mother at Oxford. She agreed with them that Maxwell, who had been alone on the boat with a crew of 11, 1 American, 1 Dane, and 9 Britons, might well have been the victim of foul play. Thus, one of their first family decisions was to order a full-scale background check of the crew. They also decided that Betty would fly the same day to the Canary Islands with their eldest surviving son, Philip, a physicist who has suffered from psychological problems and who hadn't seen his father much in recent years because they didn't get along. Betty and Philip would be joined as soon as possible by Ghislaine, who spoke Spanish and could be helpful to her mother at the death scene.
You speak Spanish too?
I think she speaks like 7 languages.
Wow.
You know what's wild? After when she was like kind of separated from Epstein, trying to rebrand before her arrest. Remember when she did that ocean company, Terramar?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Artist Life. That's so sweet. I appreciate it. I remember seeing, I liked to watch TED Talks back then. And I remember seeing Ghislaine's TED Talk and not knowing who she was and listening to her talk about her submarine and Terramar and thinking, I want to protect the oceans too, but what she's saying don't make no damn sense. Like she wants people to pay to be a citizen of the ocean with her company, but her company don't have a government behind it or anything. You don't really mean shit. You're basically just giving her some money. Like, I don't get this.
Yeah.
Then later on, we find out a lot more.
Like offsetting your carbon footprint by donating money to people.
Yeah, those carbon credits. Like, I want to keep the environment clean, but just paying money because you do it don't make no sense. It doesn't help anything. Oh, Charles, thank you so much. That is Amber's husband. Appreciate it.
Kind of you, honey.
Very kind. Okay, it says their suspicions were understandable since Maxwell had been warning his family for some time that unspecified enemies were out to get him. Indeed, 2 weeks before his death, he had met in the penthouse suite of New York's Helmsley Place Hotel with Jules Kroll, head of Kroll Associates, a worldwide private investigation firm that specializes in work for corporate CEOs, multimillionaires, and politicians. Maxwell had ushered Kroll and 2 other men out onto the patio so their conversation could not be overheard or bugged. Kroll had a thick dossier on Maxwell compiled in the days when he had helped William Janovich, the chairman of Harcourt Brace Janovich, beat off Maxwell's hostile takeover bid for that publishing conglomerate. Now, to break the ice, Kroll reportedly said, "Let me start the conversation this way. I will never be on the other side of you again, whether this meeting results in this assignment or not. From here on out, you never have to worry about me being against you. I am conflicted out." It was a very solemn meeting, and it went on for a couple of hours, said one of the participants. The sum and substance was that Maxwell was convinced that people were out to get him, to destroy his empire, and to cripple him financially, and destroy his life and business in any way they could. He named businessmen, political enemies. His paper was the only national paper that supported the Labor Party, and he asked Kroll to undertake finding out who was behind all this. I remember Maxwell saying, "It's one thing for people to speculate whether I'm over leveraged or if I can make this payment or that payment, but this is going far beyond that." Now, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. His newspaper was the only one that supported the Labor Party. And so a lot of people felt because of that he strongly actually believed Labor Party beliefs, but to him, it was a money funnel. Like,
Right.
oh, they have nowhere else to get information that is leaning towards labor. Let me provide.
He was just a man of the people.
Right.
Yeah, man of what will get him paid.
Mhm.
Like the in Wicked, when the Wizard of Oz, they're like, "What? But why would you do that?" He's like, "You gotta give the people what they want." um, the meeting broke up with Maxwell's promising that he would send Kroll what he called a memorandum of suspicions and unexplained events. Maxwell was working on this compendium, said the participant, when he met his death. Kroll Associates was never formally hired. When I told Betty Maxwell about this meeting, of which she had no knowledge, she didn't seem at all surprised. Nearly 10 million people were reading Bob's newspapers every day, and everything was being done by his enemies to ruin the man and discredit his mere papers. A conspiracy definitely existed to destroy him. There was no doubt that Maxwell was feeling beleaguered. His most dangerous enemies were not composed of flesh and blood, but creations of his mind. Maxwell was a food addict, and like some people who suffered from eating disorders, he exhibited symptoms of classic manic depressive. The bouts of paranoia from which he suffered in the final months of his life were fed by the knowledge that his grandiose dream of transforming himself of the owner of a prosperous but unglamorous printing company into the creator of a media conglomerate spanning the globe, a company on the scale of Time Warner, Bertelsmann, and his arch rival Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, would never become a reality. He had overextended himself in the late 80s when he went on a buying spree in the United States and borrowed $3.5 billion to purchase the publisher Macmillan and the official airline guides.
Oh,
Official airline guides? Yeah, he would buy publishing of really boring stuff and like jack up the prices for submissions and purchase of it after it was printed. And just create these funnels.
he was really smart.
Macmillan
Yeah.
was one of the other big textbook publishers, if I remember correctly,
Did you say
right?
the name was?
The Macmillan?
Yeah.
Isn't that also a textbook company or something?
Yeah, they also do maps, don't
I think so. Let me Google it real quick.
Yeah, I could be totally wrong. I just feel like I've read that on a book before at school.
Right.
Macmillan Publishers Home. They have children's fiction.
maps? I can't remember who does the maps.
Wikipedia says that they're traditionally considered to be one of the big 5 English language publishers,
Okay.
along with Penguin Random House. Yeah.
Wow.
He had a gig. He knew how to get in there, and
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And that's so Epstein-y because like a lot of people are like, why would he give these donations to random science, what's the word I'm looking for? Portions of universities. Portion is the right word, but the science part, the research
Yeah.
department. What'd you say, Nancy?
communities. Yes, the department.
Yeah, and really like fund and patronize these scientists that were struggling to get their research out there. And it just seems altruistic and good. And like, and with Robert Maxwell, like making Pergamon Press and Man Alive, like it seems altruistic and good. But what they really did was create a money funnel from themselves and actually make it financially hard for not only the researchers to publish, but for then people to get the information.
Cherokee girl found it. Rand McNally.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's who does the maps. Gotcha.
Yeah.
hmm
Started with an M.
Yeah. And somewhat Cherokee girl said who published Jipper's book? I believe it was Penguin Random House. Let me
Yeah, Penguin.
Who published My Time to Stand? Ben Bella Books.
Oh, I thought it was Penguin.
I thought so too, but
Oh, that was Prince Harry, wasn't it?
yeah. Yeah, Ben Bella Books. Wonder what the heck that is.
I've heard of it now that you say it, but I can't remember any stellar books that came out.
Anonymous Mystic, that is what I'm asking. Like it just seems weird.
Mm-hmm.
Especially someone known to be literally criminal back in the day. He was in charge of getting science stuff and airline guides to people.
Wild.
Robert was offended and upset that he was seen as merely a printer. said Peter Jay, a former British ambassador to the United States and Maxwell's chief of staff for 3 years from 1986 to 1989. He was determined to go and demonstrate to the world that he was a publisher as well. Well, how's that different from a printer? Publisher, printer, like, I don't want to insult a whole career, but like, what is the big difference? Anyway, he didn't stop there. He also bought companies in France, Israel, and Eastern Europe. Like many other speculators, he was betting that the good times would roll on and he could pay off what he owed with the cash flow from inflated dollars. But as the world economy cooled off in the 90s, he found himself running out of money and things started to go from bad to worse. By last spring, he had sold Pergamon Press, a publisher of scientific journals, in 1968, one of which I've got right here, and reference books, which was the foundation stone of his empire. He also tried to shred some of his interest in Israel and announced plans to sell 49% of the stock of Mirror Newspaper Group. As collateral for staggering private loans, he had put up shares of his public companies, but short sellers were driving down the value of the stock. Maxwell responded by using his secrecy-shrouded trust in Liechtenstein and his privately owned companies to shuffle around hundreds of millions of dollars in his scheme to buy his own stock in order to boost his price and thereby prop up the collateral that underpin his bank loans. Eventually, he would go as far as to siphon off money from the pension funds, the treasury of the Mirror newspapers, and manipulate the shares of stocks in Berlitz International, owned by Maxwell Communication, by pledging them to 9 different parties. Yeah, he is wild. But it says, despite his badly scarred reputation, Maxwell had little trouble raising money for a comeback, leading some observers, such as Lord Wiedenfield, publisher of Wiedenfield and Nicholson, to speculate that the funds came from the Soviet Union. He was represented by investment bankers at Lehman Brothers, Rothschild, Salomon Brothers, Goldman Sachs. It says after his death, Goldman Sachs became under investigation in Britain and the United States for possibly having helped Maxwell drive up the price of his stock. Epstein was deeply involved with Goldman Sachs too, and didn't they get investigated for their money stuff with him?
Oh yeah,
I thought Goldman Sachs did, and Lehman Brothers.
yeah.
Last March, in the face of all of his financial troubles and in a stunning display of Maxwellian chutzpah, he bought the New York Daily News.
It's chutzpah.
Oh, thank you, chutzpah. I met with him the day after he bought the paper, recalled Liz Smith, whose gossip column was appearing in the news at the time. I was taken to his enormous boat. Maxwell showed me pictures of his children, told me that they had been happily married. He had been happily married to the same woman for 46 years. He and Hoag were arguing over who would be called publisher. Hoag made an effort to convince me to stay when he knew he couldn't stick it out because Maxwell was a real piece of work. Maxwell offered me a $15,000 annual raise. This after I'd been there for 15 years and killed myself for the news, and it just wasn't enough. Maxwell's reception in New York surprised even him. After he bought the Daily News, the president of Rothschild Inc., I picked him up in his boat. He liked Chinese food, so I decided to take him to Foo's, which is the best Chinese restaurant in the city. As we drove up First Avenue, people would recognize him, open their car doors, come out to shake his hand. At Foo's, the entire restaurant got up on its feet and started clapping. He was overwhelmed. He told me, in my whole life in London, no one's ever acted like this. I'm here a month and look at what's happening. He always said that he immigrated to the wrong country, Betty Maxwell told me. He was tremendously loyal to Britain, but people here couldn't understand a character like him. Nothing of that man's life would have been the same in America. Everything would have come his way. Well, nobody likes getting their pension stole.
Right.
British or American.
Was his wife Scottish, since they said that she had a Gaelic?
No, Gallic. She's French.
Oh.
Gallic, like the Gauls. Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah, I get you.
Let's see. Just to make sure of that, Maxwell assembled a high-priced group of prominent consultants and lawyers to help him make his way in America. The roster included former senators Howard Baker and John Tower, and Republican Party stalwart Robert Keith Gray was director of communications for the 1980 Reagan-Bush campaign. So he was major left-leaning in Britain, but when he come to America, he was getting in with Republicans. I just find that so funny. Let me find the juicy part since this is getting a little long here. Let's see.
It's interesting though, because I didn't know all this.
Yeah,
Me
it's wild.
I didn't know any of this.
He lunched with President Bush. He sat in the reviewing stand along with General Norman Schwarzkopf. And when the Desert Troop Storms were given a ticker tape parade at Broadway, he showed up at a favorite watering hole of the rich and famous, the Round Hill Resort on the island of Jamaica, where he rented a villa for himself and his guest, a Jamaican woman.
Storm and Norman. Haven't heard that in a while.
He was always, he had a lot of women kind of going through just like Epstein. Okay, here we go. We're getting Epstein-y. Says he was often attended by at least 2 personal assistants, a cosmetician who regularly gave his thick eyebrows and slick back hair a dose of black dye, and an attractive blonde secretary. He was a very crude man, said Martha Smillis, a writer who followed Maxwell around while reporting a profile for Time magazine. His polish was not very deep. If you were with him for any length of time, it peeled away. I was in his library in the Maxwell House penthouse, a beautiful apartment with marble and servants all over the place. And while I was admiring his books, his valet said to me, "You should see Mr. Maxwell's collection of pornographic tapes." He hated to share attention with anyone else in the room. He wanted to be center stage and in control all the time. And that description, again, takes me back to Epstein. People would say, like, they would be shocked when they were with him just how crude and low class he would act.
Uh-huh.
Says he charmed many Americans with a story about friendships with the high and mighty. He was obviously a guy whose persona was totally overtaken by his public image, by what he purported to be, which was a world-class billionaire tycoon. He was celebrity mad. He'd cut short a business conference just to show you a picture of him shaking hands with Gorbachev.
I know a few of those kinds of people.
Right.
Oh,
Let's
NASA.
see. Oh yeah, it says I don't know how to pronounce this dude's name. Brezhnev. Brezhnev asked him what would have happened if Khrushchev had been assassinated instead of Kennedy, and Maxwell replied, "Well, one thing is for sure, Mr. Onassis would not have married Mrs. Khrushchev." But while things appeared to be going swimmingly in America in the summer of 1991, they were fast falling apart in Britain. The Financial Times raised serious questions about the mysterious rise in price of Maxwell Communications stock. The British Broadcasting Company's Panorama news program, just got to interject and say Panorama is the one who did the Princess Diana interview.
Yeah.
The independent newspaper launched separate investigations of Maxwell's finances. A lawyer for the pensioners of the Mirror Group began expressing concern about possible manipulations of the fund. Peter Walker, a former Tory cabinet minister and well-connected business executive, announced that after considering an offer to assume chairmanship of Maxwell Communications, he thought better of it. Maxwell himself, having bet and lost millions in the foreign exchange market, had to mortgage the Mirror newspaper buildings for $166 million. I had stayed on relatively good terms with him despite my leaving his employ, said Peter J., his former chief of staff, and one day he telephoned me about what he called his cold. This was in May or June. You know, he had a lung removed in his mid-50s, and he often suffered from pulmonary edema. I told him to take a Benylin, it's schoolboy cough mixture, and expectorate. He said, "Thank you," and the word friend came up, and suddenly he said, "You're the only friend I have." And I said, "Bob, don't be ridiculous. Old-fashioned English schoolboy that I am, if you take someone's check, it is not civilized or respectable the moment you're out the door to badmouth the guy. I didn't, and I suppose that explains why he called me his only friend. I was in no sense his friend." Again, that sounds like people talking about Epstein now.
Yeah.
They say his mood swung violently from beaming, relaxed confidence to surly, snarling aggression. In July, during a meeting in his study in Maxwell House, he accused me of betraying him because I sided with those who complained about his stock lending. I said, "The stock lending must stop." He said, "It's none of your fucking business. I'm chairman and I'm responsible." I said, "I have an obligation too." We also had a row about our trying to tell the pension fund trustees what he was doing. And he said again, "It's none of your fucking business to tell the trustees. I'm the chairman of the trustees." Most of our dealings were with Kevin, to whom my relations were usually courteous but grew increasingly distant, Lord Donahue continued. I saw Kevin on July 31st, a company meeting in Edinburgh, my last day. I had been scheduled to leave the previous December, and I was fed up with the whole bloody thing because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what I didn't know. Kevin and I had had words. Kevin normally never lost his temper. He had an almost clinical control. Kevin could be mean like his father. I was complaining about the stock lending people and about people who were in charge. It was a gamble working for Maxwell, he went on. I went to work for him because I was bored of the city, and although I believed he was a rogue and a pirate, I did not believe he was a crook.
A
What's
rogue
the
and a
difference?
pirate.
Yeah. What do you think a pirate? What is a pirate?
I'm glad you guys had the same reaction to me because I'm like, what the hell do you think a rogue and a pirate is?
You know.
Funny.
Oh, man. It was at that time in late summer, Maxwell appeared frequently at London's casinos, playing 3 tables at once, dropping 2.5 million in a single night. For years, he had been a inveterate gambler, but this was the behavior of a desperate man. He knew time was running out. The Wall Street Journal was preparing a piece on his crumbling empire. Seymour Hersh, the American reporter, was bringing out a book on Israel's secret nuclear arsenal called The Samson Option, in which it was alleged Maxwell had close ties to the Israeli intelligence service Mossad. Got a copy of that book on the way, by the way. At the end of his life, Bob was no longer able to tackle very complicated problems with the same sharpness that he had displayed through his entire life. Betty Maxwell told him, I think he was extremely tired, not only because of his business, but because of all the attacks to which he was subjected. In England, they don't tolerate success. He did all this thieving and stealing, and his wife blames it all on those British.
Yeah.
Yeah, an honest pirate. He's not like other pirates.
Now, did Robert Maxwell himself have ties to Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip? Because we know that Ghislaine had ties with Andrew and, with the whole family, basically.
I think from what I remember, it was kind of like how, what's his name? Muhammad al-Fayed, the owner of Harrods, Dodi al-Fayed's dad, was constantly trying to get in with the royal family, and all he could ever get close to was like Princess Diana was the most senior royal, and usually lower ones than that. I get the feeling, I need to research it further, but I get the feeling that Robert Maxwell tried the same and could only get close to minor, like Prince Andrew through Ghislaine type of thing.
Okay.
But I might get proved wrong because there's a lot of info about this.
I put in somebody else's name in Chat GPT to see if they were connected, but they're not. I'm not going to say who it was, but
Yep. Thank you, Dragon Approved. Yeah, Kung Fu, he was a nice thief. Which, that's weird. Ghislaine once described her dad. Now, she was clearly pretty messed up from her childhood and chose to continue that behavior. But later on in life, she was talking about her dad once. She's like, oh, he was so kind, so kind. When he would beat me with a stick, he would let me choose which one. Yeah.
And in the South, we just say, yeah, my mom or my dad told me to go pick a switch.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like there's correlations to a more normal behavior, but these just weren't normal people, Yeah, I agree, Lavender. Her and her dad had a very weird thing going on.
Kind of like Gypstein.
No worry, chosen disciples. I'm glad you're here now. Forgot I had a live. No worries. Not everyone bought that explanation. Betty is clearly going to live out a fantasy for the rest of her life that Robert was a good man and they were all jealous of him for making so much money, said Roy Greenslade, a former editor at the Daily Mirror, whose tentatively titled Maxwell's Fall, an Insider's Account, is scheduled for publication late this spring. He fooled the world. Usually you can't fool those close to you, but Betty knew nothing about anything bad they did. They lived separately for a long time. Maxwell never wanted Betty near him except when it was judicious to have her attend a dinner or send her to take his place at a charity function. Even when they shared the same hotel, she was put on a different floor.
Oh, wow. Wow.
No wonder
Says,
you don't hear
however,
anything about her.
go ahead.
And then she's talking so highly about him. She's like over here defending him. And girl, he put you
Yeah.
on a whole different floor when y'all were together. Oof.
I totally agree, Kung Fu Panda. Dodie was such a piece of work.
Oh yeah.
And it says, she may not have known all the details, said the businessman, but I cannot believe that she did not have some idea of what he was up to. In Maxwell's final days, his sons may have known what was lurking around the corner. By then, Maxwell was ordering huge transfers from the Mirror pension funds. The final tally was $750 million. 2
Wow.
weeks before his father's death, as money began to dry up, Ian Maxwell reportedly telephoned an acquaintance in Argentina and said, "It's every man for himself."
In Argentina, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
If
Interesting,
you think
huh?
about World War II and the
That's
flood
where
of
the Nazis went.
yeah, huh.
And we know he made the start of a lot of his businesses in Germany. Yeah. Wild.
Wow.
Maxwell was increasingly paranoid. The Mirror Group's deputy chairman told me to prove his point, Burrington gave me a tour of the executive suite, showing me where Maxwell had bugged the offices of his own executives. The police had recently ripped out wall panels, uncovering the secret bugging equipment. He was naturally a secretive man who was concerned about people telling tales on him. I remember how concerned and jumpy the Maxwells were after the last board meeting. I was phoned by Ian Maxwell, who said, "What is your finance man up to now?" I'm told after that board meeting, he handed an envelope to one of the non-executive board directors. Don't you know that envelope could include figures? Before the boss left for his fatal cruise on his yacht, Burrington said he demanded an explanation from Maxwell for the mysterious disappearance of $83 million in Mirror funds, and Maxwell promised that he would discuss the matter with him when he returned. Maxwell also knew that Cooper and Lieberand Deloitte were scheduled to do his next audit on the pension fund in a couple of months, where it would surely discover the missing funds. One of his banks, the Swiss Bank Corporation, was threatening to go to the serious fraud office and blow the whistle unless Maxwell delivered stock, the stock he didn't legally control because he had already sold or pledged it as collateral to other creditors. What's more, Maxwell was informed by Kevin, that Goldman Sachs had dumped a vast block of Maxwell Communications stock on October 30th, a sale which was to become public November 5th. And that was going to set off a stampede of other sellers.
Maybe
But they said,
off that boat.
Yeah.
He owed a lot of money.
Sometimes people who decide to unalive themselves get really calm right before.
Yes, they do.
And it said Joe Haynes, Maxwell's confidant and official biographer, had lunch with him and a group of Mirror editors on October 31st, 6 days before Maxwell died. He was not crumbling under the pressure, the still loyal Haynes insisted. He was relaxed. He was enjoying his food. He wanted to raise the price of the paper, but accepted our objections. His daughter, Ghislaine, visited him in his office before he flew off to Gibraltar. Gibraltar. Thank you so much. He was looking for an apartment in New York, a sort of petit where he could talk and have meetings, and wanted me to help him. He also asked me to go see a particular apartment. He said, "If you like it, I'll make time to see it and come to New York." The next time Ghislaine saw her father, he was dead. His body had been spotted in the Atlantic Ocean, floating face up, his eyes wide open, by an air-sea helicopter rescue team from Gando Airport. At first, the crew harnessed Maxwell to the end of a winch and tried to raise him out of the water, but he was too heavy, and the effort may have left abrasions on his skin and torn muscle in his shoulder and back, which were later discovered during the autopsy. Ultimately, the rescue team had to lower a stretcher and tie the body to that. So that's part of the controversy on the autopsy is there's all this muscle tissue ripped up, and some people were like, "Oh, he was definitely foul play," but he was so big they had trouble getting him lifted up to the helicopter too.
I find that if he actually jumped off the boat or did this himself, he wouldn't have been found naked. He just doesn't strike me as somebody that would want to be found naked like that.
I do agree, but it is kind of a known phenomena. People who have yachts that very often dudes walk out drunk to pee over the side and
Yeah.
fall.
Oh,
They're always finding dead, drowned people, accidentally drowned off yachts and private boats like that with their pants down
Yeah.
or naked because they were peeing off the side.
Well,
So
that's an accident, but if he actually did it like on purpose, I just don't think that he would.
I agree with that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost
Yeah.
wonder if maybe he was planning on it and then foul play got him before he could get to it.
Yeah. And the torn muscle and stuff, wouldn't they be able to tell if that was post mortem?
Yeah, they should
They
be.
should be able to.
Mhm.
The only thing that concerns me there is I don't know how far advanced that kind
Yeah.
of medical tech was in 1992.
True. True.
Like now, we would know for sure.
Right. Very true. Very true. I don't know. It could be either or. He could have took his
Yeah.
step out, but it sounded like he was about to go through that audit. They knew they were going to find the money missing. I mean, he could have, but it
Mhm.
also sounds like he had a lot of enemies. He owed a lot of people a ton of money.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
kind of money people don't play about.
Here they describe his burial and funeral. It says by Wednesday, November 6th, the family had hired a local Spanish lawyer, and Betty Maxwell is putting pressure on him to get her husband's body released so it could be buried according to Jewish ritual as quickly as possible. Maxwell had made plans to be interred in a grave on the Mount of Olives overlooking the old city of Jerusalem. The Mount of Olives is more than a place of honor. According to Jewish tradition, its graves would be opened before any others by God on Judgment Day. Betty was eager to have Maxwell's body flown to Israel and turned over to the religious authorities before sundown on Friday, the start of Jewish Sabbath.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. It says, under the pressure, Spanish pathologists worked feverishly through the day and night to eviscerate and embalm Maxwell's body. They placed his parts, heart, lungs, liver, and other internal organs in 3 ice chests and shipped them off to Madrid for a post-mortem. Then they issued a death certificate declaring that Maxwell had died of heart and lung failure. A later, equally inconclusive Spanish autopsy report cited heart disease and drowning as possible contributing factors. So yeah, it's never really satisfied how he died.
Yeah.
Oh man, listen to this. Because of his great bulk, Maxwell's coffin would not fit through the door of his private Gulfstream 4, so a larger jet was chartered in Switzerland.
Wow.
Reminds me of Henry VIII, kind of.
Yeah.
This whole story.
They didn't find water they didn't have it as drowning in the first autopsy.
Apparently not, but then in the second one, they said that because of water in his lungs.
Yeah.
And like you said, why on earth wouldn't they see that in the first one? It's just weird.
That is weird.
Everything about it. It's super, super weird. And Tom Bauer, Amber, I'm sure you know who Tom Bauer is.
Yep, he's coming out with a new book, I think.
Yep. He wrote one on Maxwell before his death called Maxwell the Outsider, and the acknowledged expert on the man didn't see it that way. The only thing the pathologist knew for certain is that Maxwell had taken some seasick tablets and vomited at some stage before he went into the water. The suicide theory depends on his jumping into the water while conscious.
Hey, I've thrown up so hard that I've,
Fell
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
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 Says many of Maxwell's friends and associates rejected suicide outright. Maxwell, they said, had wriggled out of far worse fixes before, and suicide is the last thing a traditional Jew would do.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
It is, but Maxwell, when it benefited him, he cut off his locks and did away with being Jewish for a while, and then brought it back whenever it was popular to do so. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I really can't figure out exactly what I think. I can see like 4 or 5 theory possibilities, but I don't know which one I land on.
But you would think I'm just thinking this through out loud, but if he knew he was going to be buried on the Mount of Olives, which is a huge
Deal.
religious thing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that he would take his own life if he knew that he wanted to be buried there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from a traditional religious standpoint.
Well, the next paragraph here says that the Israelis did their own postmortem.
Mm-hmm.
Says, in the opinion of those familiar, oh yeah, they're right here. It says they must not be buried in that part of a Jewish cemetery consists of hallowed ground if it's a suicide. So it says, in the opinion of those familiar with the contents of the autopsy conducted by Dr. West, the mystery surrounding Maxwell's death would be swept away by the eventual release of the official Israeli postmortem in Dr. West's report. Those people pointed out that the bloodstains, discoloration, and injuries found on Maxwell's body by the pathologist in Tel Aviv were all probably caused by the rough handling of his body after he died and by the postmortem evisceration in Spain. The Israeli report, which ran to about 15 pages and was written in English, said that in the opinion of the pathologist, Maxwell's death was most probably caused by drowning. It went on to assert that the examination of the body indicated a compatibility with an involuntary fall into the sea and that there were blunt injuries on the body caused prior to death. Betty Maxwell herself told me that the report concluded that her husband was alive when he fell in the water. They found he had large tears in his left shoulders that were concurrent with his hanging by his left arm to save himself.
Yeah, but if they put his shoulders when they picked him up, how do they know that?
Yeah, like some of them, the Israelis said were definitely before death, and then other ones said were post-mortem. And we also, it seems like Betty is really determined to believe her own narrative, just listening to her words. So she's not that, in my opinion, reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And says, meanwhile, however, in the absence of any public statement, the Maxwell mystery only seems to grow by the day. Rumors that he had been an agent of Mossad were fueled by his extraordinary funeral in Jerusalem, which was attended by Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir and practically the entire political and business establishments. No less a figure than Chaim Herzog, the president of the state of Israel, delivered the eulogy. Herzog served with Maxwell in the same unit of the British Army at the end of World War II. Although Maxwell never gave much to charity, he did contribute to Herzog's President's Fund, which is used to help people out. Maxwell also created a lot of connections in Russia to smooth the way for Jewish immigration. He invested in Israel and made a big profit when he sold his business, and Israelis hoped that he would be seen as an example to attract other investors. The report compiled by the CIA station in London allegedly concluded that, although Maxwell had cooperated informally with Mossad by passing on information, he was not an agent. And Peter Jay, the former British ambassador, threw cold water on the theory that Maxwell had been a spy for Mossad or any other intelligence agency. Before I took the job with him, Jay told me, I did, as any sensible member of the British establishment would have, what is called taking surroundings. Speaking very privately, I said I had been asked to take this employment with Robert Maxwell and was giving very serious thought to doing so. Was there anything I ought to know? Provided you're a person in whom they have confidence, they will find a way to discourage you if they think it's a bad idea. And in that sense, I got an all clear. Well, probably because he was working with all the agencies.
Yeah. He had his hand in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Which tells me that he was definitely a spy for somebody.
Yeah. And, you know, what didn't they, aren't there like, isn't there some talk of Epstein also being like Mossad or something?
Yes.
A lot of talk, yes.
It's really weird how many little parallels they really do have.
They really do. Really do.
And the one thing they have in common is
Ghislaine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm going to hop off here. I've got to go get my kid in 30 minutes, but I made it an hour and a half with nothing crazy happening.
Yes, your equipment has worked great today. Thank you so much for being here, Ashley.
Thanks for having me up, and I'm going to keep listening, but y'all have fun. I'll see you later.
Okay,
See
bye.
ya.
Bye, Ashley. Have a good night or day. It's only noon. Well, here.
Yep. Now, this guy has his own theory. He thinks that the state funeral was simply because of Maxwell's money. He says, I was quite clear in my mind, if any part of the British government service concerned with international affairs would have thought there was some reason of propriety, prudence, or loyalty, as a formative ambassador, I would have gotten the appropriate signal not to take the employment. And I repeat, I did not. I find it inconceivable that Mossad, with its awesome reputation for efficiency and ruthlessness, would want to have anything to do with this crazy guy who never took guidance from anyone. What explains the quasi state funeral they gave him? Money. He bought the bloody plot on the Mount of Olives. Now, this part here is what really got me. So, we talked about the birthday book in the beginning?
Uh-huh.
Listen to this paragraph.
Okay.
When Maxwell turned 60, recalled Robert Hodes, co-chairman of the law firm, Betty wanted to produce a Fettschrift. I'm positive I'm not pronouncing that right. I believe it's a Yiddish or Jewish word. A Fettschrift or a holiday book. And she wrote hundreds of people throughout the world, including people such as myself, who had been on the other side of battles against her husband. I, for instance, had represented Saul Steinberg in the famous Pergamon case in the late 60s and early 70s that almost destroyed Maxwell. Betty wrote something like, I know you were his enemy for a number of years and saw the worst in him, but I have reason to believe you never hated him. Is there something you can say to include in the Fettschrift? That's exactly like the notes that Ghislaine sent to everyone to put together this birthday book for Jeffrey.
Wow.
Like she recreated her dad and Jeffrey. It says, now all my pals refused her request, continued Hodes, but I wrote a brief thing saying that what had always impressed me about Bob Maxwell was his extraordinary care and affection for his family. He really seemed to be someone devoted in an old-fashioned and traditional way to a family, not the way I've seen with other tycoons and their family. That's a weird thing to say, but whatever. But yeah, the birthday book has been such a big subject of talk on this. It was really fascinating to me to realize that that was something Ghislaine saw her mom do for her dad and recreated that, and that it's basically a Jewish tradition.
I've never heard of it.
And apparently Epstein was born to a Jewish family in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so with the last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he was loosely Jewish, It doesn't seem like he was really practicing.
Well, like Maxwell, I'm sure Epstein's religion is much like his politics. Just play both sides to whatever is benefiting you. And never let either one know that you're not on their side.
Yeah, it's more about heritage and nationality more than religion.
Seems so.
Wild. Let's see.
Every time I see Kevin, I just want to say, Kevin.
That's so funny. Now, here is a part that goes back to what you were saying, Amber, about the Argentina connection. Because we know, a lot of the science papers and stuff that he got, that he was able to start, his science publishing with, was because those scientists had been part of the Nazi Party and they were restricted by sanctions from publishing their own work and making money. And Robert was able to take it and do that. So it makes me wonder if, he had connections there too in Argentina. So listen to this. His older son, Philip, the one he didn't get along with. It says, Maxwell exercised a psychological hold over his children. Of all 7, Philip, it seemed, had suffered the most. He suffered a nervous breakdown at one stage of his life. He went off to Argentina in the late 70s, and while he was there, he met a woman named Nilda, who he had a child, fell in love, and they married her. Maxwell was incredibly enraged, and a massive argument began. I saw Philip once in Maxwell's office. He had tears in his eyes, and his face was pressed into his father's arms. I said, Philip, you're not looking too well, but he wouldn't enter into any discussion. Yep. And it says, after Philip was born in 1950, Betty Maxwell gave birth to twin girls, Christine and Isabel. Isabel had a very unhappy marriage, and then she got married last Christmas. Maxwell didn't go to the wedding. It was typical of him, failing to turn up for his child's wedding. I said to him, I see you didn't turn up for her wedding. And he said, I meant to, but after all, it was her second. Bob was, in a way, very hard on his children, Betty Maxwell conceded. When they were growing up, they asked me how they should deal with Dad. I would say to Bob, would you consider this angle or that angle? I would never be disloyal by saying to the children, Daddy's wrong. If he was angry, I wouldn't permit them to play one parent off on another.
Probably because she was afraid of him.
Yeah, and that give the kids an idea that he never was wrong.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a husband and wife parent unit can find a way to say that the other is wrong and together, without. But if one person is a psychopath, you can't do that.
Right.
But well, I will leave that off there. I have a crap ton of other information that I found that's really interesting, and it gets a lot more lurid and stuff. But I don't want to make this 4 hours long. Keep y'all hostage.
Understood. I get it.
I'm gonna roll a smoke here while we chat for a few minutes. So yeah, what are y'all's thoughts? Like, I know you said a lot of this you weren't aware of. It's kind of like the deep dive on peripheral figures that influenced Epstein. So I'm curious what y'all think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following the Epstein thing, obviously not as close as some people, but I know a good bit. I mean, I knew about the birthday book and, a few other things, but I've never really looked into what was it, Robert Maxwell?
Yeah,
I've never
Ghislaine's
really
dad.
Yes, I've never really looked into him other than just knowing that he owned McGraw-Hill, but it seems like he owned a lot of other
Yeah.
a lot of places too. So it's very interesting to see the control of information. And like I said, with the playing of both sides, it shows us that they're really manufacturing us hating each other.
Yeah.
They really are. So that we don't question
Yep.
them and what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah,
seems to me.
the rich, the super, super rich seem to all, regardless of, like I said, whatever words come out of their face holes, they seem to be absolutely invested in making sure that the poors, whatever level of poor the poors are, they're not super rich,
Yeah.
stay mad at each other and not mad at them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
that's what I see.
Yeah, and I haven't followed the Epstein stuff just because there's so much, and
Yeah.
but I think going back to the beginning of where this all started, and it definitely started with Maxwell, and then seeing how Ghislaine then turned Jeffrey into her dad, basically.
Yeah, like right down to doing things for him that her mom did for her dad. Like that just seemed so eerie to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was more of a relationship than what they put on, I think. And it just goes to show you that there are a lot of people out there who are pushing narratives and saying one thing while funding another.
Yep. When I look at these actions from the super rich and how like Epstein would be talking to, people who were very high up in the Democratic Party and making them think he was 100% on their side and giving them money and stuff. And then you look at his emails and he was doing the exact same thing to the Republican Party and stuff like that. And it's like, man, I hope all of us, poors, we're not in the super rich mega billionaire level Epstein levels and stuff.
Yeah.
Always remember that like we need each other, and regardless of how much we might disagree on little things, like we need each other so that the major rich of the world don't turn us all into their fodder and feed by pitting us against each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
That's basically what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and release those damn Epstein files. I don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans that get arrested. Arrest them all,
Yeah.
man. Get them. I don't care if it ruins the fabric of our society or, completely changes everyone's mind on everything. If the fabric of our society is based on protecting pedophiles, then let's tear that shit down.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Like, I don't care which side they're on or if they might be a politician I thought was cool at one point.
Right?
No, if they were all up in it with Epstein, like, take him down, get him out.
Yeah, being a fan of any politician nowadays, I feel like is just weird, or of
Mhm.
Yeah.
any just rich person that's really their only claim to fame is their wealth and influence over things. If they're not doing something, it's weird how we put these people up on pedestals when they don't really give a shit about us. Same with celebrities.
Yeah.
I feel like we're coming down from that some, like, the celebrity worship is not what it was in the early 2000s, 20 years ago.
No,
Thank God.
no,
But
no.
yeah, thank God. Oh, man, this one, XO Bean, yeah, the
Yes.
John McAfee
Yes.
drama, wild. We should talk about that sometime, but
Yeah, and actually my husband and I met a woman in Atlanta last year or the year before, I can't remember which, that talked a little bit about living in that area and, witnessing a lot of this stuff, and it was very interesting. She just came up to my husband. We were outside of a comedy club, and she just started telling him her whole life, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
wild. So, yeah, there's
That's
some stuff
crazy.
there.
But yeah, if you guys are interested, hanging out and chatting with me, we could do a few more of these lives because there's a whole bunch more like really wild stuff that I've got about Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine leading up to actual Epstein activity. But it's really fascinating to me, and especially as we're going over all the Gypstein files, it's fascinating how people who are just in their mind inclined to be this way, they act the same no matter how much access and money they have.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I'm really, interested to see where this goes because I love history, and, Robert Maxwell is one of those enigmas that has existed that, many people want to know more about, and if we could just unravel a few things, we might actually know something.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how did Epstein become the new Robert Maxwell? Like, how exactly did that transfer happen? Because it seems so obvious.
And who's the new
Hey,
Epstein?
Brandy. Yeah,
No
who is the
kidding.
new Epstein now?
Mhm.
Who's the
'Cause,
new Ghislaine?
yeah, and we knew that, Peter Nygard was doing his thing and other people, but, they had different operations, right? I mean, it was 2 totally different operations.
I mean, the other Epsteins are the peoples whose names were redacted in these files, that
Yeah.
shouldn't have been. And they said, what was it, 8 co-conspirators? And it takes a lot for the government to actually name you as a co-conspirator because that can create
Mhm.
so many other issues.
Mhm.
Allegedly, in my opinion, I would say, oh, I know his name, the dude who does Victoria's Secret.
Isn't that Nygard?
Lex Wessner.
Yeah,
Oh.
Wexner, that's what I thought it was. Yeah, he has a lot of really suspicious and weird ties, and it seems like he might be one of the 8 conspirators, allegedly, in my opinion. And, there was somebody who came out somewhat recently who was a judge at some of the, I almost want to say it was the Miss America or Miss Universe pageants. What's the one that is real popular? But anyway, we should be looking into some of these pageants. Not
Mhm.
to say that any particular person's responsible for it, but weirdos flock to that sort of thing.
Yep.
Mhm.
So even
Yep.
if it's not the people putting it on, look into the people that are just in that business, I would say.
Well,
Look at
Sarah
Ramsey.
Ferguson and Andrew seem so much more in it than we ever realized from the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
coming out lately.
Yeah, they're creeps.
Mhm, and, aw, thank you, Chill Arts or Art is Life. That's sweet. Uh, someone said yeah, a couple of people said, "It's so crazy that Gypsy is totally cool with the fact that she's being called Gypstein because she's used it
Yes.
herself, she's reposted it, and it's like, for real?"
See, that shows that she has no growth, no understanding of what she's
Mhm.
done.
To
She's a
be
piece of
com-
crap.
to be compared to a child trafficker and R-worder, it's like,
And just be laughing about it like, oh, my
Yeah.
Gypstein era.
yeah, and I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it is funny, but it's not funny if you're the one who's being called that. Like, good lord.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
like if oh my god, I just can't imagine being compared to Epstein, having my name actually changed to reference Epstein and just be cool with it.
Embrace
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
and she thinks, you know, that she started this dance trend and that people aren't making fun of her. Like, yeah, there's a couple people that like are sort of on her side, but most of those people don't really give a shit and they're just trying to be there for the meme.
Well, and the funny thing is the people who have something to say in defense of Gypsy, it's like every one of them, they talk about how they're not willing to look at any of the files. They're not willing to look at the videos. They want to take Gypsy's word for it only. If we lived in that kind of world all the time, we would know crap, and there would be so much more crazy stuff going on. You have to educate yourself, even if you don't want to.
I agree. I've been saying that.
And
That
I
applies to a lot of
fuss,
things, mama.
I know I fuss about it too, you know,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, if you're going to talk about something, if you're going to stick your neck out on the line for somebody's reputation and their story, you need to know more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it like that one lady who said that she doesn't need to watch any FOIA files, none of that, because she read Gypsy's book.
That was pathetic.
Oh my God. Like people rewrite their story in memoirs and it gets called out all the time. I
Mhm.
don't know why anyone would take anyone's memoir just as gospel without fact checking it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then
Like
to
that's dumb.
call us all kinds of names or say that
Mhm.
we're obsessed or weird or no, we're looking at historical documents. We're looking at something that happened, and
Yeah.
we're looking at all angles, not just one person's narrative.
Mhm.
And so if you live in a world where you're constantly just believing everybody, you're probably living in a sad world.
Yeah, like Sam J23 just pointed out here, like she said, I read Gypsy's book. I don't need anything else. Well, by
Mhm.
not looking at anything else, she doesn't know that Gypsy herself has admitted the book is full of errors and inconsistencies.
Mhm. Yeah, and she's pretty clear on that.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
so she got upset whenever she went in to do the audio recording. Oh, there's so many inconsistencies. I don't believe that, but like if someone's going to take the book for gospel, they need to know that Gypsy herself has said it's not accurate.
yeah, it shows the willingness to just consume whatever comes your way.
yeah,
And
and
think a lot of things.
Gypsy's.
What were you saying, Laura?
Oh, I was just gonna say that Gypsy's pretty much fessed up to almost every individual lie that she's been called out on regarding the book, except for anything that really, really goes against the abuse narrative. But she's pretty much admitted, yeah, this is wrong, and she'll go into specifics, you know.
Mhm.
So it's like if you just pay attention to the things she says, you'll realize. And again, I agree with the you don't need to be attacking survivors, or I understand why people don't want to look into questioning a survivor story, but we can at least
That
agree that she's
disregard.
not a good person that doesn't need to keep being platformed. And if you see her continue to make these mistakes, in the very least, just ignore her, stop giving her money and hyping her up.
Yeah.
Never fact checking a survivor's story opens us as a society up to all kinds of bad actors claiming a survivor story to hide their bad actions.
I
You
have
know?
personally witnessed people make up stories on the fly about abuse and about different things that have happened to them completely right there on the spot because they're trying to get out of something. And
Yeah.
it so totally changed my view on the truth and people and stories and stuff because there are just some, I don't even know if they're even trying to be evil or trying to be bad. They're just wired that way that if they get scared or feel like they're being confronted, they'll just make up this whole wild ass story that is not true in any way, shape, or form. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, not to, all I'm going to say about it is the whole thing that happened in Chillicothe, the reason why we initially went with believing what was said, because we were thinking, why are we going to question someone who says they're victimized, especially when it was right there in front of people? And that at least shows me that you can lie about something very, very easily that people are witnessing. You can just decide to choose your own story, basically.
Mhm.
And that's why I really, really have started looking into this stuff.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason why my opinion on questioning victims has changed a little bit. Obviously take it as a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yep. It's a wild, wild thing.
Mhm.
Well, you guys have any final thoughts before we get off here?
No. Just I hope everybody stays warm and safe.
Yeah, nothing too crazy, but thank you for having us up. And I'm interested in looking into more stuff like this because there's a lot of stuff that people haven't looked into, So I'm interested.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, one more thing before we jump off. I told you guys I was going to show you this. Just a second here.
So Art's Life says, as a survivor of many forms of abuse, I understand why my story was scrutinized, even if it did feel traumatic. Yeah, I mean, I have a weird story about weird things that happened to me. And a lot of times I feel like people don't believe, my story, and not because I'm a liar or anything, but because it's so outlandish that it's like,
Mhm.
what?
Yep. I'm sorry you went through that, artist life, and I appreciate you sharing that with us because it is traumatic, I'm sure. I know for people who went through real things to have it questioned. It's sadly because of bad actors in our society, we just have to do it.
Yeah.
So this is inside the Headington Hill Hall house that Robert Maxwell bought, and he had, just as you come upstairs, this stained glass creation made. And let me show a close up more clear. It's supposed to be him as Samson at the gates of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if it wasn't such a fucked up premise, I would almost say getting a stained glass portrait of yourself is kind of
Yeah.
iconic, but this is horrible. This is terrifying.
Oh, well, I definitely would have never guessed that's what that was.
Same.
No.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. I found it in articles about the house, and they talked about the artist that he commissioned and how it meant so much to him and his heritage and everything.
Oh, that's very interpretive.
Hmm. So basically, he wants to be Samson, tear down the gates, and take Gaza.
And die in the process of taking it all down, huh?
Mm.
Maybe so. Makes you wonder about his death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did he die in the process of taking something down? And that guy you wrote about in the book I'm going to get is called the Samson option.
Oh,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear more.
It's a pretty fascinating rabbit hole. It's like the Epstein files are one thing, but you know me, I like history and a lot of reading. So I'm like, Ghislaine's dad, I keep hearing things that sound similar. So I went way back on this rabbit hole track.
No, I think that's the perfect thing to do is go back to the beginning.
Cool, cool. Well, we will plan another. Thank you all so much for being up here with me. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope everybody has a very blessed day and stays warm and safe.
Yes.
Same, same.
Have a good night or good day, everyone.
Bye,
Depending on where
everybody.
you're at.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.